One of the reasons why we wanted to include this component in terms of branding was because we were very much aware that as we have gone through this pandemic, churches, number one, have not been able to meet in person. We've not been able to do in-person worship, and we know that's a reality. But what we do have to do is make sure that the community is well aware of the ministries that we provide, the service that we provide, and also to understand that the church is still relevant in this day and in this time. Tomorrow, as you know, and all of you are well aware, is Pentecost Sunday. And so God is going to bless us with the ability to share with our communities in such a way that we can change them for the better forever. So one of the things is that we have to understand that we must ensure that, like McDonald's, the community recognizes us for our presence and for the gifts that God has provided. How many folk can say amen to that?
Amen.
Now, I remember, and you all remember this too, the golden arches. When you saw the golden arches, you knew what that meant. There was no doubt in your mind. But we are living in a day and time now where we really do have to be more intentional in how we present ourselves into the community, how we partner in other aspects of the community, and how we make sure and ensure that folk understand what is actually going on. If I could, let me just give you an example of what we must do in our church, at the Norfolk Church in Norfolk, Virginia. Because we have a food pantry, and because it is our desire, it is our ministry, and we perceive this as the vision that God has given us, is to ensure that families that are in need of food so that they can be nourished, can be fed, then we have to use various ways to share that message. And sometimes that's not easy. You know, some people love to look at their email. Amen. Some people will even look at Twitter. Some folk will scroll through Facebook all day. But what we have come to understand is that you now have to have what we have really termed this as a web presence. And you have to have what is classified as branding. Now, I know that sounds very secular, and I've been trying to figure out how to make it sacred, but it is what it is. They need to recognize who you are, and they need to understand your presence in the community. Now, please forgive me because I am waiting for Jasmine Smith. And I'm hoping and praying that she has her link and that she can get in. But until that time, let's just do this. If you have not revisited your logo for your church, let me encourage you to do that. In our area, the Tidewater area, we understand that water is important to us. And I know I have some folk on the line because I can see their names. They understand what water means. We are surrounded by water, but we also know that water is a powerful image in terms of our Christian faith. Amen. How many of us know about that? We talk about living water, don't we? And what that means. Remember that story where Jesus encountered the woman at the well? And he said to her, if you knew the gift that I bring to you, then you would be asking me some other things. And so right now, what we're doing as churches, wherever we are, be it in urban area, rural area. We must assess, how do we create that imagery that will connect to the community immediately, so that they will recognize us like they recognize Amazon, Nike, Dunkin' Donuts. How many of you all recognize Dunkin' Donuts? Amen. Say amen, somebody.
Amen.
Until Jasmine get here, we're just gonna have church. But we have to make sure that they understand who we are and why we are present. Amen.
Amen.
So let me encourage you to do this. And a lot of times churches will not do this because they think that they cannot afford to do it. But there are ways for you to brand and rebrand the imagery of your church so that the community can understand fully and totally who you are, and it can be affordable. I'll give you one example. This week, our church has entered into partnership with our community college, Tidewater Community College. And what I happen to know is that a part of that college is that they actually have a department that can assist us and help us to do some of the things that we cannot do for ourselves. Now, I'm not going to say to you that you need to do everything at one time, but at least create the list. Create the list of the things that you know you must do. Number one, your signage on the outside of your building. Now, I have some of my members from our church, and I know that they are here and they're present. One of the things that we have been very intentional about, even during this coronavirus, is that we were intentional that the landscaping at our church would be exceptional. The reason why is because the people's first impression of you is a lasting impression. So let's write that down. Let's make sure that when they enter our space, when they are, I'm sorry, Reginald, you have something you want to say?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm listening.
No problem. No, we're just waiting for our sister Jasmine to get here. And if she doesn't get here, then I'm gonna take it.
You're doing good.
Let's make sure that that first impression is a lasting impression. So we have to make sure that we're understanding that from the time that they enter our property, the parking lot, or however they enter, the threshold that they cross, everything that is presented, it needs to be done with a sense of excellence. So however that is to be worked out in your arena, let's make sure that that happens. Making sure that you have the material pamphlets that you need for your community to express what is going on in your community, laid out, displayed in such a way, safely now in light of coronavirus, but done in such a way so that they will have the information that they need. The next thing we need to do is to make sure that we are using our social media to the extent that it will encourage our churches and ensure that we are making our best representation. For us at the Norfolk Church on Sunday mornings, we are very sensitive that our website needs to be up to date to the best of our ability. And we also provide a digital bulletin. And there are resources, affordable, that you can use in your church so that you can ensure that this happens on a weekly basis. Now, it will take time. You will need to train some people in your church to understand how to do it, how to manage it, but I guarantee you it is worth the time. So the first resource that I want to offer to you is a resource that I use for our digital bulletin, ISSU. ISSU.com. And I will make sure that I get this to Dwayne Stinson so that at the end of this day, the resources that we have shared, you will have. I want to ensure that. And forgive me, I'm just trying to check to see if Jasmine has come on. So that's one. The other is another publishing resource that we use, lucidpublishing.com. It allows us to do not only a digital bulletin, but it will allow us to do a digital bulletin that will allow it to flip. So that if you are doing a hybrid version of your worship service, your congregation can literally go to your website and see your bulletin for that Sunday if they are not there in person. So now you are able to do a both and, print and digital. And Dr. Lewis in our main presentation shared with us how important that is. We also use a resource on Sunday mornings. We actually use EasyTithe. Some people use PushPay, but I encourage you, if you don't have this in place, that you secure an online giving site so that your congregants, whether they are in person or if they are viewing using the technology, they have the opportunity to go online and to be faithful in their stewardship. Now, the members of my church have heard this so much, they can recite it with me. But we are faithful believers that when we are faithful, God is more faithful. And so we should never leave a service without the opportunity for the people of God to be faithful in their stewardship. EasyTithe has worked for us because it is cost effective, it's easy to use, it is easy to integrate with your website, and it will keep your congregation connected. What we've had to do is that before COVID-19, we had a process where, we would, the counters would come in on Sunday, they would count, and then they would go to the bank, and all of that was done on Sunday. Now, what is happening because of COVID-19 is that we had to change that schedule. So what happens now is that we literally have to wait a day or so that we can give people the opportunity to go online and to make their contributions. So let me go back. Social media. I believe that one of the keys to the use of social media is consistency. So please make sure that when you're using the social media, that you are being consistent. So go back, your logo. And I know a lot of our churches use the cross and flames, but some of us have evolved and we are moving beyond the cross and flame to encompass other imagery that will denote where we are serving. And I believe that is perfectly fine because it has worked for us. It helps people to understand who we are and who God has called us to be where we serve. So you want to have that consistency. So you want to use that across every brand, every platform that you are using. You want to ensure that your branding is consistent. Somebody say consistent.
Consistent.
Amen. The other thing that you want to do is to remember this. Be careful as you're using the social media that you are not crossing lines that you should not cross. In other words, when you're using social media on behalf of your church, then you're speaking for the church. So we need to be careful. And I know in this day and time, so many people have various philosophies and, feelings about certain things. And what we have to be careful of is that we have to ensure that the message that we send forth is consistent with who we are and consistent with the church in which we are a part. And I know that's difficult at times, but we can practice a certain discipline that will allow us to not violate that. And we really can be consistent in our messaging. Also, monitor your social media to ensure that no one is able to really jump in and post on your website without your permission first. Because sometimes they will put out a message that is not representative of your church. And so you will have to develop a discipline where you have a process where you're going to check for Facebook on Monday, Twitter on Tuesday, however you want to put that together, but you're going to need to do that so that you can ensure that your message is not only authentic, but you can make sure that it is representative of your church and who you are. So now let me stop for a minute because we have many folk on the line. Let me see some of the questions that you may want to ask. If you put it in the chat section, I will attempt to answer them to the very best of my ability. Okay. I'm going to give you all a moment, and some of you that's on the line, and if you have a question, feel free to go on and ask it. Just unmute your mic and ask, and I will answer to the best of my ability. And I did get an email that Jasmine was having problems getting on to her link, but she's coming as soon as she can. What is it that you need to know? How many of you are using the social media to ensure that your congregants are online with you on Sunday if you're doing worship online, or that they are staying up to date and up to speed with everything that is going on in the full life of the church? All right, Jim, I see you're on the line with me. I can see you. If you unmute your mic, do you have something that you would like to ask? You need to unmute your mic. Unmute your mic.
You're doing a superb job, because you're so right about getting on social media and ensuring that you know what's there on the platforms, as well as making sure your message is out, because serving the community, which we're having to do because of COVID in a bigger, greater way.
Yes.
It's the only way people are connecting. It's where people are first going to. They're not walking to us anymore. They're meeting us in the privacy of their home on these screens. So, amen, sister. Amen.
All right. And you're right. And one of the things that we need to remember is how we even craft those messages.
Amen.
And so for our food pantry, we have to be careful that we're not sending a message that we are providing charity. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing, and this is what we try to convey, is we are in mission and ministry. And so we try to serve people with dignity. And so, and a lot of times we forget that when we're writing our announcements and so forth, that you really need to go back and read it, reread it, and read it again, because you want to make sure that you are conveying the message effectively. And let me say this. Many of us, we write, particularly pastors, we write all the time. And when we see something over and over, sometimes we don't catch the little tiny mistakes. But do you know you need to have somebody proofread before you publish? Because people with fresh eyes will see the smallest, tiniest mistake that is made, and that will affect their impression of your ministry. So if you have the ability, allow someone else to read and proofread your announcements, your messages, anything that goes out with the name of your church on it. Let's make sure that it is representative of who we really are. And someone else said, yes, a second set of eyes is so important. I like to read things out loud to catch mistakes. And that's absolutely true. I literally bribe my mother to read my messages before I publish them, because I do not want those little small things to be a hindrance for the people that we are serving. Tell me about some of the technology that you are using, and let me see if I can give you some tips, techniques, and our tools that can help you in the future. And I'm just waiting a second just to see the messages that will come in. Facebook Live. A lot of us are using Facebook Live. And if you're using Facebook Live, then I also want to introduce you to another platform, StreamYard.com. StreamYard.com will allow you to send your feed to not only Facebook Live, but it will allow you to send your feed to Facebook Live, YouTube.com, and other platforms at the same time. And that will save you a tremendous amount of work and effort. So let me recommend StreamYard.com. And it's just the way it's spelled, STREAM yard, YARD.com. It's affordable and it is highly effective. If you have the right camera, and you can use the camera that comes on your laptop or your desktop, but I would recommend that you would investigate a more effective camera. Y'all forgive me, they're cutting my lawn outside, and I'm sure you all can hear it. But StreamYard.com, and then if you go and search on Amazon and look for a PTZ camera, high def, it gives a wonderful picture, and it will allow you to capture different angles in your service. So currently we only have one, but we're able to capture almost a 360. But our goal is to add a second camera so that we can have various angles of our service, so that for those persons that are home and viewing from home, they will actually be able to feel that engagement that we desire. Okay. All right. Okay. Others are using Instagram, Vimeo, and YouTube. And those are good things, because one of the things that you want to do is to remember that content is king. And that's me talking. That's Sherry Daniels talking. Content is king. So while we have this moment of challenge in terms of this pandemic, this is an opportunity for us to record our services, for us to record our choirs singing, and with the proper documentation, proper licensing, you can do that. But we can actually create that catalog. We can create that library that folk can go back to, that they can view on demand. So when we start to think about wanting to do ministry that is on site, on demand, and live streamed, We want to give people every opportunity. Some of you, if you saw Dr. Lewis's presentation earlier this morning, she reminded us that we are going to have to step outside of the box. We're going to have to think differently. We're going to have to pivot. There are going to be some things that we're going to have to do differently, and we can do them well. All right. Let me see if you have any other questions, because we have a few minutes before we're going to have to transition. But I'm sorry that Jasmine Smith did not make it, but we will get her recording once we get her into the session. You don't have to worry about that, so that it will be available on the Virginia Conference website. But if you have other questions about branding, technology, and the like, please put it into your chat section so that I can respond to it while we are here live together. In the meantime, give me a feel for how the day is going for you. Is this a good feel for our virtual event, or would you have liked for us to have done it a different way? Is this a good feel for you? Okay, somebody said it's a very good feel. You know, one of the things that our bishop has encouraged us to do is to create ministry opportunities where we are making disciples uh, as lifelong learners. And part of that is going to be how we use technology, how we really are able to distinguish our ministries in the communities where we serve. So my encouragement to you is this. I think Rudy Rasmus said this to me many years ago. He said, you know, sister, you don't have to do everything. He said, but make sure you know what God has called you to do and do it well. Beyond that, understand what others are doing so that you can join in partnership with them to make sure that the entire community is served. And that was excellent advice, because what we want to do is what God has called us to do. And so I encourage you where you are, whatever it takes, a survey, conversation, you know, a hot dog party on the parking lot, a cookout, whatever you need to do, gather the people, socially distance, safely, of course, but allow them to share with you the true needs and absolute felt needs of the community, so that as you are planning, as you all are assessing how you will use resources, because I can assure you that all of our churches are now thinking very carefully and planning very carefully in terms of how we're using resources, so that we will make sure that we are using every resource that God has given us, every gift that God has given us for the upbuilding of God's kingdom. I would hope and pray that you all would continue to go to the webpage on the Virginia Conference website, because as we are putting new resources out there, as we are learning about the new technology that is available to us, particularly affordable technology, we want to post that so that everybody will have an opportunity to try to, you know, access it and use it, because we're going to be doing this type of worship for at least the next year or so. Absolutely. Someone, Allison, stated, she says, so many are able to participate virtually who wouldn't have otherwise. And you are correct. When I was asking earlier, how does this feel for you? Is this a better way for you to participate? And we understand that. And Allison, let me say this, Bishop Lewis mentioned this earlier today. She said she was pleased that we were able to do this so that there was no registration costs to the participants. And we want to continue to do that to the best of our ability, because we know that in our denomination, because we are connectional, we come together to make things happen. So we're going to do this to the best of our ability. Our hope and prayer is that we will have several more of these virtual events. They will all focus in various areas, but today we wanted to focus in those 4 areas, one of which is this branding. And I encourage you, as soon as we're able to get Jasmine and get her recording, we will put it on the website so that you will see it. She is the expert. I'm an amateur. I do it because I just like to experiment and research and find new resources to use, and to ensure that whatever resource I find, it can be a gift to not only our ministry, but a gift to the entire community. Yeah, no long travel with gas prices, no hotel expense, no meal costs. That is true. And here's one of the gifts of the use of technology. On a Sunday morning, there could have been a possibility that you would have missed someone in person. But if you are live streaming, if you're using, say, Facebook Live or YouTube or whatever channel you use, whatever platform you use, you're able to reach more people. Now, let me encourage you to do this. You're going to want to remind the people of the time and where they can locate your service. And so you want to, that's the intentionality that you will have to have. It takes a little bit more time for us each week to send out the e-blasts, to make sure that we send the text messages, to make sure that we put it on Facebook Live. But the time that we spend doing that is well worth it. And let me just add this little tidbit, and this is personal for me. Don't tell anybody I said this. If y'all tell it, then I'm gonna deny that I said it. But whenever you send an e-blast to your congregation, reminding them of services, reminding them of opportunities, do not forget to include a link to your online giving so that persons can weigh in where their heart is and where their passion is. We had to learn this. When we began our online giving, we only started with the general operation budget and with capital campaign, 2 obvious choices. But then we learned that people have passions for various types of ministry. So we added the food pantry, because there are people who feel passionately about the food pantry ministry and how we are able to keep that ministry going, make sure that we have food on an emergency basis for families that are in need. We had to add various lines where they were able to find their way in. So I encourage you, do not forget that when you do your online giving, if you're hearing what the congregants are saying to you, ensure that you have an opportunity for them to weigh in at their most passionate level, because they will support the church. Okay, y'all are kidding me now. But let me finish that other point. Do not forget, listen to your people. And when they tell you that they feel strongly, we've added not only our food pantry, but now we have transitional housing for families that have been displaced during the pandemic. And we're able to provide a place for them to live safely until they can secure a place of their own. Well, we have members, we have community partners that feel passionately about that. And we have to make a way for them to be able to give. The other thing that I would say is this. As you are doing your online worship, ensure that you are announcing all of what is happening in the full life of your church, because people really do want to know. And what I've learned from Facebook Live, and some of you all can tell me in the chat if this is true, I've learned that while we will broadcast on Sunday, people watch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They may even be watching at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So you always want to keep before them what is going on in the full life of the church. Okay, your people. When I was talking about my people, I'm talking about the members of my congregation. I'm talking about the members of my congregation, because here's the expectation that we have. The expectation is that when we share the news with our congregation, and while we are trying to share it broadly as well, we have an expectation that our congregants, our members, will take that message forward into the larger community so that the word can get out. So when I referenced your people, that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the members of your church. I'm talking about your community partners that you work with on a weekly or on a daily basis. That's what I'm talking about. All right, we have just 6 minutes left before they're going to take you all out of my session, and then we will move into another. Are there any final questions that you would like to ask me? Because okay, when you say members, my understanding is that ministry work like food pantries serve best when non-members or clients are served. When I say my members, I'm not talking about who is being served. We serve the community. When I talk about my members, I'm talking about those persons that volunteer to ensure that the people in the larger community are served. And that's what I'm talking about. Now, we don't close it down and or relegate it just to our members, but we actually encourage community partners. For instance, we have Humana Insurance that work with us. GenCare will come and volunteer with us. Panera Bread will volunteer with us. We have other persons from other churches that will come and work with us to ensure that we're able to feed X number of families per month through the food contributions. Miss Smith is here. Jasmine, good morning.
Good morning.
And I'm not sure how long they're going to give you, but I'm going to mute my mic and let you take over. I've done the best that I could.
Okay. So what questions do we have and what have we already covered?
Basically, what we have covered is the importance of making sure that during this pandemic, during this time, that churches particularly ensure that the communities are well aware of their presence and of the ministries and services that they are providing to the larger community. How do you do that affordably? How do you do that effectively? And we also talked some about the use of social media and some of the resources, platforms that can be found on the internet that can help them to broaden and expand the message that they are sharing in the community.
Okay, well, I'm seeing in the comments that someone says, will we have the benefit of her full presentation? I'm going to give my calendar link so that those who attend or who miss this can schedule a 30-minute conference with me. It'll be at no cost. And I will also record what should have been said during this, because we definitely don't have enough time when we're talking about building a brand and following through, making sure that your mission is aligned with the community. Absolutely no, we cannot cover that in just a few minutes. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, any specific questions about what was already discussed, and give some more feedback to that.
Dwayne, we have, I think, probably 3 minutes left for her to do that. And if that's the case, then Jasmine, can you do this?
Yes, ma'am.
If you had a top 10 list, what would that top 10 list be for churches in particular as we are moving into this this phase of the pandemic and beyond?
It's very important to understand your mission and the audience that you serve. One church is different from another church. There could be two churches right across the street from one another, and their mission and their culture could be different, even though they're reading the same book. And so I think it's really important that you are aligned or in alignment. My sound isn't working. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm seeing in the notes someone said they couldn't. So the top 10 would be understanding your mission, making sure that it's in alignment, knowing what the culture of your organization is. And when I say culture, what does it mean like to be a member of your organization? What are your members like? What do they do? Where do they live? What does their family life look like? What does their lifestyle look like? Only then will you know how to engage, where to engage. How can you be a servant? You may live in a neighborhood where there may be an issue with children, ensuring that you have a partnership with the other people in your community that are going to align with your mission and the things that you're doing. I know that I kind of came in on a topic about partnering with local companies for volunteers. That's what I came in on, right? That's extremely important, because not only are you reaching their community, you're reaching them. Knowing and understanding all of the different social media platforms and how to use them and who's on each platform is extremely important. Facebook has a certain demographic. Instagram has a certain demographic. Snapchat and TikTok have a certain demographic. Knowing and understand who's on those platforms, how to use them, and when is extremely important. Another option would be partnership is different from an alliance. Sometimes people don't understand that. Partnerships means that we are going to come together. You're going to bring your resources. I'm going to bring my resources. We're going to put them together. Having an alliance is having someone who you can count on who is going to support you as well. And so having alliances with other churches in your community is important. Allowing an opportunity for people to come to you and for them to feel comfortable coming to you is really important. And then how do they do that? Is it, do you have a time? Do you have a time where there's an open opportunity for someone to come to you? Do you have church hours? Do you have a phone line or a text messaging application or someone specifically who holds on to a cell phone so that when someone is in crisis and they need someone to speak with, how are their voices being heard? How are their concerns being heard? What programs do you have? And are your programs intentional? What's the goal?
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about intentional, I mean intentional in all the things that you do.